Kent State game where he just played like the worst game of his career.
Been good.
I feel like he hasn't been like what he was. He doesn't seem to be what like as explosive an athlete as he was the year before. And I think there was even a punt return that he wasn't on, if I'm not mistaken, this past week. But the one thing I think that gets overlooked, as long as Georgia would use him this way, is I've heard a lot about Georgia doesn't have a number one receiver. Like they can't win because they don't have a number one receiver.
Well, hold on. Let's move to let's hold this. Let's move to Georgia and Florida. Let's tie this into Georgia and Florida.
So yeah, just looking at Georgia and Florida, obviously, I think Georgia's offense looked pretty much dominant in this one. In the first half, up 28-3. And then you saw the turnovers happen. And this is probably at least the third game I can think of with Missouri and Kent State, and now this one where you turn the ball over. There's those three games, I think alone, Georgia has like 8 or 9 turnovers, like over half the turnovers on the season. And you can let teams play with you. So I think it was, one of the interceptions, I guess it's hard to take anything away. I think the last interception was a bad throw and a good play by the defender. The first interception, like you just got to tip your cap to the defensive player on that one. Like just took it out of his hands, like it got the feet in. And then the fumble force, like that's a forced turnover on Florida's part. But it's you can't turn the ball over like that against good teams and expect to win. And so Georgia was really cruising in that one. Until that point. And so it was good to see, like, okay, there's adversity. Florida made it 28-20 in this one, and then Georgia pulled away. But what I was going to say, I've heard a lot about the number one receiver thing. And I think like it's a concern of Georgia, like, opening teams up vertically. But Brock Bowers, call him whatever you want to call him. The guy is a number one receiver. Like this guy, he's one of the best players in the country. And I wish Georgia would just start using him the way teams use running backs, because I mean, he's that good. Like this guy should touch the ball 15 times a game, give him 5 carries, give him 10 touches a game. Like he's that good of a player. And so I wish, you saw in this game, we had 5 catches for 150 yards.
Well, I was going to ask you, was this his best game of the year? I feel like it was.
I think the South Carolina game was his best game. That's where he had the rushing touchdown, and I think like over 100 yards receiving as well. But yeah, and this was definitely a big game for him. And you're seeing Darnell Washington too. Darnell Washington, I think, might be the second best player on this offense. Like this guy, you can't really convince me that there's a tight end, a second tight end in the country that's better than Darnell Washington. Honestly, this guy is just a monster blocking. He catches basically everything that's thrown to him. He did drop one in this game. That was another thing. Stetson seemed to miss some throws, but also there were some drops by McConkey and Washington. So I feel like this offense just needs to be more crisp. It's like you're saying that after they scored 42 points versus Florida and Jacksonville, right? Like we're talking about a 22-point win in Jacksonville. Like, I don't know. Georgia not necessarily as dominant as I kind of wanted them to look. But, I mean, that's kind of where we are with Georgia's program. The one thing the last few weeks is after struggling early in the season, I think Georgia's really hitting their stride running the ball. I think Kendall Milton, I think he's still hurt. I'm not sure if he's hurt or if he's just fallen down the depth chart that far. But I think he's basically 4th on the depth chart at this point, and you're seeing, I think you saw when the game was in balance, I thought it was really interesting. I feel like it was a lot of Kenny McIntosh. He seemed like the head and shoulders number one guy getting all of the carries until the second half. You saw more of Dejon Edwards and then Branson Robinson kind of closing it out in that like Elijah Holyfield role, like fourth quarter, just come in and start running hard and throwing people down. But yeah,
not really the same size though. Not really the same.
I feel like they're probably similar. They're probably same height. Branson Robinson's probably got like another 20, 30 pounds on him. He's
that I would say more like 40. Dejon Edwards is not a
no.
Thick dude.
I was saying Branson Robinson compared to Holyfield.
Okay, Branson Robinson. I thought you were
years
saying
ago.
Dejon Edwards. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Branson Robinson, he's a stud. But yeah, Edwards with over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. McIntosh with 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. So yeah, I think they still clearly need AD Mitchell back, and it was unfortunate because I felt like Georgia's receiving core coming into the year was really deep with like solid receivers, but there wasn't one that was nearly as good as AD Mitchell. And if he was going to miss some time, that might throw off the passing game. You've at least seen some of the tight ends step up, but you can tell Georgia does need a guy out wide, I think, to stretch defenses, and AD Mitchell was that. And so I'm hopeful he can be back for the Tennessee game. Remains to be seen. I'm not that confident. Nolan Smith was another one that got hurt in this Florida game. I don't know if he just was in street clothes for the rest of the game, but I don't know if that's precautionary or if he's in jeopardy of missing the Tennessee game as well. But yeah, I think, outside of the third quarter, this game was 35-3. So Florida just got the momentum there in the third quarter, but I think Georgia pretty much took care of business. So we don't have a lot of mutual data points for Georgia and Tennessee to this point, which is kind of interesting. It's pretty much Florida. Is that the only common opponent they've played to this point? Tennessee hasn't played Vanderbilt or South Carolina or Missouri, so
yeah,
it's tough to say. So Georgia 23 touchdown win, neutral site. Tennessee 5-point win at home. So
same kind of thing though.
Transitive property. It was. Florida did make it look close near the end there, but we'll see what happens. Anthony Richardson, I feel like he was getting more design runs in this game, which is it's like I don't know why that wouldn't be one of the 3 plays you called like every series, a design run for Anthony Richardson. It's clearly his strength. But yeah, he's a dynamic athlete, but you just, other than the one big touchdown, which it looked like really the safety trying to jump the route and didn't get it, so gave up an 80-yard touchdown. But other than that, it's like Anthony Richardson just doesn't really so many deep balls just look like you're just throwing up a prayer. Like there was one like 2nd and 10, middle of the second quarter, he's just scrambling and just throws like a 70-yard Hail Mary, and it's just like, what was that play? Like I don't even understand why he just threw a Hail Mary in the middle of the second quarter. But I don't know. He's got talent, and I've heard Florida fans talk about do you think he'll come back next year? And it's like, I don't know where he's going to go unless he's transferring. This guy clearly has a whole lot to improve on. I felt like in the first 2 quarters of this game, I didn't know how good Georgia looked or how just inept Florida kind of looked. I don't know. They did not look like a competitive team until they really were not a competitive team for anything but like a 10-minute stretch in the third quarter. So I don't know. Florida's got a long way to go. South Carolina took a step back this week. So I thought that was going to be a tough game for Florida. Now I'd have no idea what to expect, but still with A&M, South Carolina, Florida State, there's still some tough obstacles that I think I don't know if Florida's better than any of those teams.
I have my receipts on this podcast. My South Carolina, my Kentucky, my Mizzou, my Florida takes. Just go back on the pod, folks. They're right there. They're right there. It's just just not in the same ballpark as Tennessee, Georgia. It's a different game. But like you said, I don't even care about the data points that much. I wonder the other subtle part of this game, I thought, and it's interesting you didn't really mention this part, was Stetson throwing 2 picks. Stetson could have thrown more for folks who watch this game. He struggled, I would say, more than I've seen Stetson. And I'm pro Stetson on this podcast. So Georgia fans, don't come after me for this. I've said, and Matt Green, you can attest to this, that Stetson and Hendon have been the best 2 quarterbacks in the SEC this year. And especially going into the year, and just the efficiency stuff and everything else. Like they both deserve a lot of respect and all that. I just think
I
it's
would.
not
I
the best time for him to look the way he's looking right now. I would, if I'm a Georgia fan, you're like, this is not the time when it's just one of those things where I think Stetson, and it's not his fault, where if Brock is not there or Darnell Washington's not there and guys are not open, because like you said, Ladd is not who he's been, no AD Mitchell, he needs to throw people open. And it seems like that's not him right now. That's not what's happening. But because Georgia is so good running the football, they had over 200, 235 yards. I think they ran 6.8 yards per carry or something against Florida. They have a multitude of backs that they can throw at you. The thing is, Tennessee has a top 10 rush defense in the country. We'll see what happens there. But I think for Georgia to beat Tennessee next Saturday, I think those picks cannot happen. Like what we saw where you got yourself in a hole. Will Levis, those couple picks against Tennessee will bury you. That will bury you against this Tennessee team because of just you can't throw away offensive possessions like that against the Vols. You just can't. And I'm curious what they clean up or what they learned from Florida to kind of get ready for this and get Stetson's head right. I don't know. Like, what did you see? Do you think Stetson had a sneaky bad game in this one?
I felt like some of the first half struggles, I kind of put more on some of the drops from the receivers because I feel like there was a couple what could have been some big plays offensively. Obviously, I mean, kind of got lucky with and then the one pick in the first half too was really a perfect throw he made to Dominic Blaylock and a pretty nice like back shoulder catch Dominic Blaylock made, and then the defender kind of flipped over him and took the ball at the same time. Like that was a kind of an incredible catch, but or incredible interception. But I felt like in the second half he did seem to miss some throws and just some throws that he just needs to be making. Like you said, with Tennessee, this being like potential number 1 versus number 2 matchup, like college game day, like game of the year, like you want to see a Georgia offense a little more crisp than what it was. And
Can I give you a Stetson Florida stat for you? Does it feel like this? I'm going to see if you'll guess this. If this sounds right to you, based on what you've seen from Stetson, the full Florida experience. His career stats against UF.
I think I know what you're going to say, but yeah, go ahead.
34 of 73 for 47% completion percentage, 555 passing yards, 4 TDs, and 5 picks, 2 wins and 1 loss. That's kind of wild.
2020, George got off to the good start, up 14-0, and then he did separate his shoulder in that one, but then threw a couple picks.
It might just be a Florida thing.
Juan Mathis came in, but yeah, and last year he did throw a couple picks, and one of his picks is what led to the whole downfall there at the end of the second quarter when George went from 3-0 to 24-0 in like a minute and a half. But yeah, he definitely didn't play his best at in the cocktail party, but 2 wins, that's what quarterbacks are pretty much measured on. So especially a Georgia quarterback winning in Jacksonville, you can't really beat that. But yeah.
Well, let me just say, like, if Stetson has 2 picks against Tennessee on Saturday, Georgia is not winning this football game. Like, let me just go ahead and pin that, Georgia fans. Just get ready. Like that, he cannot have that. He just can't.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think you can't give a team like Tennessee multiple
extra possessions.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We got time to break that one down, but yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, obviously Florida gave them a scare in the third quarter, but I think for the most part, you saw this offense moving the ball pretty well. So it's
also,
hard
Jalen Carter was awesome. Like, I don't know if you watched some of those Jalen Carter snaps, but I don't know how you block Jalen Carter. Like, there was some stuff where I was rewinding, and Jalen Carter's he's a monster.
And ultimately, that's how Georgia is going to have to beat Tennessee. It's going to have to be their defense making more plays than Tennessee's defense.
Well, defensive line specifically. I think it's just them getting through and hitting Hendon. Like, if Hendon is getting shook and he's having to make quick throws, or he's getting hit while he's throwing, and then a Georgia defender, Keely Ringo just bounces into the picture and returns it for 6. That's how you really interrupt this Tennessee offense.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think they had 3 sacks in this one. They were last in the SEC in sacks coming in to this one. But I can't remember where I saw the stat in terms of pressure generated without blitzing. They're top 5 nationally. And so I think that goes a long way to potentially defending Tennessee's ridiculous offense. It's just
Well, can I throw this at you?
And can they keep guys in coverage, keep the big plays from happening, and not have to blitz?
I heard Staples on his show today. He said that, and I thought this was interesting because I was wondering, like, I was galaxy braining it of like, do you want, if you're a Tennessee fan or a Georgia fan, do you want to drop this game on Saturday, avoid the SEC title game, and just go in and take your chances on 11-1 to make the playoff? And what he said was something I hadn't really considered, but I guess when you really consider both resumes, Tennessee wins, even if they lose, and obviously you take care of business against South Carolina, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. But like, even if you lose to Alabama in the SEC title game, you're making the playoff. Like, if you beat Bama and Georgia in the regular season and you take care of business the rest of the way and you finish the regular season 12-0, you're in the playoff. Like, it's done. The SEC team that finished 12-0 in the regular season is making the college football playoff, which I hadn't considered.
Without a doubt, because if they beat Georgia, like Georgia's not getting in ahead of Tennessee.
Yeah.
It can't happen. So it's like this idea that it's better to not make the play. Like, the only way that the loser of this game doesn't get or can get to the playoff is if it's Tennessee, obviously, because they have that win over Alabama. But but their entire season hinges on Georgia also beating Alabama. Because if Alabama beats Georgia, well, then you're just kind of fucked. You're not getting three. You're not getting three SEC teams in. Like, as cool of an idea as that might be.
Even though we
don't even really want that, honestly. We want to see if the best of the SEC versus the best of other conferences, like, especially if we've seen these Tennessee matchups with both of these teams. But we're a long way from that. So I think if Georgia wins on well, we still got a whole week to get to Georgia. So yeah, we can. I don't know, whatever the last thing you were gonna say.
No, that's good. We're chomping at the bit to talk Georgia, Tennessee.
Yeah, without a doubt.
A pod divided.
Biggest game in Sanford Stadium. Then it's like the $1 million question this week. I expect Claude Felton, the renowned SID, to come up with a stat of top 5 matchups or something. But yeah, I haven't seen anything. But I mean, it's the biggest game in Sanford Stadium I can think of.
I think it's the biggest one ever. Yeah, for sure. I mean, 1-2, like, you're enjoy it, folks. I don't know when it's gonna be like this ever again.
The CFP committee, that's why they need to make it 1 and 2. These teams are about to play this week. Just make them 1 and 2. It makes it sexier. We all know that. Let's hype up the fight. Let's promote this thing. Let's inflate the rankings here.
Yeah, absolutely. That leaves us like 9 minutes to talk about the other games that happened this week. Well, Penn State, they fall to Ohio State in the second half. It got ugly in a hurry. That's the kind of the story of this weekend for some teams. It got ugly in a hurry for a lot of these. Like, Kentucky got ugly in a hurry for them. They were hanging with them. Penn State, they were hanging for a little bit. Then it got ugly. Wake Forest was hanging with them, and then it got ugly. Oklahoma State, you're like, wait. Oh, then it got ugly. So that was kind of the case all over the board. But for Penn State,